All right, well, welcome to Using Text Features and Reading Online. This webinar will explore the opportunities and challenges of engaging students with digital text, uh, with focuses on informative websites, online research. Participants will explore ERWC Middle School module, Keeping California Wild, and discuss interdisciplinary approaches to reading digital text. So at this moment, I want to introduce the CARW, the CARW co-director and the ERWC program director, Dr. Cindy Peck.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We have a special guest waiting for you, and we're going to talk about all things using text features and reading online. And if we could go to the next slide. But before we get started, let me just share with you, if you are interested in future webinars, we have webinars that are presented on a monthly basis. Please go to our ERWC online community and you can register for our future webinars. You'll see a list of all the topics and please feel free to register for them. And I'm trying to
Okay, and then we'll briefly discuss our ERWC webinars, our upcoming webinars that we have. And so um, well, thank you for joining us for our October webinar, but we have a few webinars coming up for the program year. We have January 15th, Transferring ERWC Skills Beyond the Module, April 16th, Collaborative Conversations in LPIC Engagement, and LPAC engagement. May 21st, we have Implementing Universal Design for Learning Strategies in ERWC. And so if you visit our ERWC website, okay, sorry, did that prematurely. If you visit our ERWC website, you'll be able to view those upcoming webinars and any recordings that we may have from past webinars as well. ERWC upcoming workshops. If you or someone you may know is interested in attending our ERWC 3.0 introductory workshops, we would love to have you to get certified in ERWC. These are 4-day workshops. Both we have in person and online and hybrid as well. Um, and so, yeah, please spread the word about our upcoming workshops and save the date for our 2026 ERWC Literacy Conference. It's going to be June 29th, 2026 at the Hyatt Regency near the SFO Airport in Burlingame. And then follow us on ERWC. I'll be posting these links in the chat. But if you go to our Linktree site, it will have pages for like upcoming events, our workshops, our webinars. All of our social media pages are on there as well. So please follow us on all of our handles. We are looking forward to engaging with you. And I'm going to bring back up Dr. Cindy Packer, CARW co-director, so that she can introduce our webinar speakers.
Thank you, Kia. And I'm so excited and pleased to introduce our speaker, Dr. Matt Moberly. He is a professor of English at Cal State University, Stanislaus, where he directs a writing program. And he teaches courses in grant writing, technical writing, and all things writing, right? Writing pedagogy. And he is also one of our newly appointed steering committee member. And Dr. Adam Devitt is also joining us today as his co-webinar presenter. He's an associate professor of teacher education and coordinator of the PK3 Early Childhood Education program also at our Stanislaus, Cal State University of Stanislaus. And so his work focuses on early childhood and elementary science education and teacher preparation. And his scholarship and research centers around integrating design thinking and a maker of pedagogies to support inclusive and developmentally appropriate learning experiences. And so he is also a former elementary special education teacher. And, bless their hearts because they are very, very special in education. They are so devoted. I just have the utmost respect for our special ed teachers. And he's taught students with mild to moderate disabilities across the K-8 settings. So I turn it over to you, Dr. Matt Moberly and Dr. Uh, Devitt.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. It's also very stressful, but I'm excited too. So, whatever. Um, Adam and I are going to talk about using text features and online readings within the middle school module we wrote together. It's an interdisciplinary module, so it combines ELA, ELD, and NGSS standards. So real bang for your buck here, folks. Not that I'm like selling it, but I'm selling it. And we're thinking about this as a living curriculum that can um, be modified and tailored to you, your students, where they're located. And it's really exciting. I hope you think it's exciting too. We want to start with a really fun activity that Adam's going to tell you about.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. And as long as we're selling ourselves, don't forget to highlight that Matt and I are coming from our own interdisciplinary spaces where he's in English education, I'm in teacher education and science education. So this curriculum really is a really cool model of how to create interdisciplinary work. So yes, let's just get started. And in line with our personal beliefs and pedagogies, we're going to get you started with an activity. So Matt's going to put in the chat a link to
If it'll work.
I don't know if that's going to work because it's not illuminated in blue.
No, but I can figure that out right now.
You can do it. So he's going to figure out how to put in a link that you're going to click on, and it's going to take you to Google Earth. And what we first want you to do is get to see Google Earth from the universe perspective. And then the next thing, I'm kind of waiting for the link to show up.
I know.
Can you put the original link I gave you and not the,
There we go.
Awesome. Thanks, Kia.
Thank you, Kia.
Go team. So open up your Google Earth. The first thing we want you to do, and what we try to model what you can do with students, is just give opportunities to play. So interact with the globe from the universe perspective. Once you get the hang of it, and I can't tell where you are in your trajectory, but start zooming in. Try to find the continent, North America. Try to find the USA. Try to zoom in a little bit closer. Find California. Once you find California, zoom in even a little bit more. And now we're going to differentiate a little bit. You're all from different parts of California, so zoom into your own local spot. And then finally, what I want you to do, or we want you to do, is zoom into one of your favorite nature spots. So do you have a local wetland or nature preserve or a state park that's in your area? Zoom into that. And also what we want you to do is kind of notice what's interesting, what piques your curiosity. What are things you notice as you're zooming in from multiple levels? I'll stop talking. I'll give you a couple minutes just to do some zooming.
Just play in the sandbox.
And as you're doing the zooming and noticing, share one thing in the chat. So I see in the chat, people are sharing some of their favorite places and naming it. So what are some things you see on Google Earth that are around those places and spaces? Like, for example, when I zoom in around Turlock, I notice how many green spaces that are all in squares. So like, what are some things you literally see as you're zooming in and out of Google Earth? There you go. Thanks, Christian. I see around Santa Cruz, you're seeing lots of blue. That's a good example.
Ooh, Point Reyes National Seashore. I'll give you a little preview. That's in our module.
Yeah, so things like color bands, that's a good example. Because when you're working with the students, the initial things are like, what do you literally see as you're zooming in and out? It might be changes in color, it might be different textures, it might be shapes, things that pique interest, things that you notice. And we'll give you one more minute to do some zooming and commenting or noticing, and then Matt and I will move on with the rest. All right. And Dr. Fletcher, what do undersea canyons look like when they're on the Google Earth? What does it look like on those maps? Hmm. Yeah. And so just one interesting thing, and when you're doing things with students, they're really good at noticing, whereas adults, I'm considering us all adults here, we tend to name things. So we already kind of know the answer. And so that's why I see lots of people already naming what they see. Whereas kids, they're really good scientists. When they zoom in and out, they notice literally what they see without naming the places and spaces. They'll say things like, "Oh, I see lines, I see squares, I see something shaped funny." So yeah, things like beautiful watercolors, great.
Excellent. Thank you, folks. So we wanted to start our talk today with just a bit of play, a bit of discovery, because that is so central to this module, but it's also really central to all ERWC modules, that students are exploring ways into the curriculum. And rather than telling you, look at this place on Google Earth, look at this specific thing, giving you time and space to just explore and discover and play. And I think sometimes with the pressure, because believe me, I absolutely understand the pressure of getting through an ERWC module. That can be really stressful sometimes. I get it. And one of the things that tends to go first is just time for exploration and finding what we're interested in. And so thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. So today, Adam and I are going to talk about some common struggles from student experiences with reading, writing, and science. And you'll hear a little bit about our rationale behind this module, what we were thinking as we put it together, how to teach this module with fidelity while making it relevant to you and your students. And this is something Adam and I talked about earlier today, that this module should also be fun and interesting to you And so there are opportunities to really personalize this. And then how we engage students in 4 different levels of reading and experiencing digital texts.
So one of the things we want just to make note, and this is our curriculum was developed in response to some of the struggles in reading, writing, and science that we recognize that especially middle and high school students have. That many come, by the time they get to middle and high school, they tend to be disaffected or dissatisfied, disengaged, and even possibly resistant to a lot of the teaching and learning that goes on in middle and high school. And so one of our hopes that we built in as we thought about and constructed this curriculum is like, how do we motivate students? How do we create a curriculum that's not overly complex with cognitive demands that exceeds their reading readiness? How do we support teacher in their instructional methods to emphasize um, more agency and authority handed over to students so that they're part of the creation of the lesson and not just passive receptors of it? And then, supporting teachers as they work with a variety of language learners, realizing that, languages or the English language is still being learned by many of our students.
So, in order to do this, these are things we thought about. We wanted to cultivate wonder and exploration of the natural world. Adam and I really thought about the best way to pair NGSS standards and ELA and ELD standards is through curiosity and exploration. Um, all I yeah, yeah. Second, though, it's not enough to just sit back and observe and explore, right? Um, we wanted to create a structured way for students to document that exploration and then ultimately, through the culminating experience of the module, share that exploration with their peers. And we'll talk a little bit more about science journals in a bit. That's where students throughout this module are collecting their observations, the fun new words they see related to science, and yeah, we'll talk about that. Third, curricular closeness to students rather than we had talked about early on in this module whether or not we want students to be reading about and exploring the big famous national parks or state parks throughout California. And we decided that it was very important for students to be as close to the material they're reading in this module as possible. So we've kind of, as you'll see later, provided 11 national, state, or reserve areas throughout California that kind of span the state. But we absolutely provide opportunities for you to take interesting natural places close to students where they are and slide them right into this module.
And in addition to being interdisciplinary between English and science, it's also very pedagogically integrated. And so there is a lot of balance between like what our next generation science standards promotes is a phenomena first perspective. So often, like we modeled with you, is we start off with a phenomena. And using Google Earth on a technology platform is an example of interacting with technology, interacting with the physical place and space. And we also like our play-based pedagogy and just the phenomena first. And, in addition to go beyond just direct instruction, the I do, we do, you do models, we really try to promote a lot of, like I said before, a student agency and authority and bringing them into the baseline of curriculum so they're not passive learners.
Yeah, and I think something that we arrived at early was that students really are experts in how they experience texts, whether those texts are print or online. Um, Students are the experts in what they see, how they see, and the things they notice within texts. And so we wanted to play into that in this module as well. And then finally, and this is just me being lofty, we introduce scientific habits of mind that can be integrated horizontally. So throughout the school year, if this is early, students can maintain these science journals throughout the school year. But then also, I think there are a lot of opportunities for vertical alignment. So what this looks like in 6th grade can be built on in 7th, can be built on in 8th if they're looking at historical documents. They can look at historical documents
Okay,
connected
Stephanie,
to the development
I'm
of
gonna bring
national parks
persimmons
and
next. I brought
all
some
of
this
that.
week, but you missed out, so I'll
So,
bring some next week.
yes. All right, so an overview of the module. Keeping California wild, exploring and conserving California ecosystems. It's a 3 to 4 week module aligned with ELA, ELD, and NGSS standards. We introduce students to the concept of ecosystems and biomes. So they're learning what is an ecosystem, what is a biome, and all the variations, right? But they're not learning about those out of context. The context in which they're learning about those are local to them or close to them, or might even be places they've been or seen or heard of. So instead of just these abstract concepts, or just showing a picture of a rainforest, or just showing a picture of a tundra, really trying to put, not that, we have a bunch of tundras in California, but, making it really close to participants. Developing scientific habits of mind through observing, journaling, and really paying attention to new scientific vocabulary. Strengthening research, collaboration, presentation skills. The culminating task of this module is to do a persuasive presentation based off of the place that students have identified, have researched, have learned about, and really focusing on like why that place matters, like why that place should be preserved. We wanted to foster environmental awareness and advocacy for protecting ecosystems, and then have them engage with specific websites. So they engage with Google Earth, iNaturalist, Wikipedia, and national and state park websites. And so the module as is has 11 national parks or state parks or wildlife reserves. So there is a lot to choose from here, but again, this is not a recipe for you have to use these places. And if you are not using these places, you're not teaching with fidelity, right? We expect that teachers teaching this will swap out some of these or might want to really focus in on some of these. So it's really designed to where you can make this meaningful to you and your students.
So one of the ways we frame this curriculum is that we want to bring both science and literacy and look at it from a macro perspective, like from a really large perspective, down to the micro level. And so seeing science, for example, like we started with Google Earth, from the universe way down to the local, like your own communities, your local preserves, your local state parks. And same thing for literacy. We want to see things like a macro level, like literacy in your everyday life, whether it's a tech platform, how you're making meaning, to any sort of books or literature or informational texts, and down to the micro level of how you're thinking about literacy through a basic skills. And so we hope we try to bring all these different macro to micro features throughout our curriculum.
And so I wanted to walk everyone through the digital texts that students will be experiencing in this module, but something I did want to point out on this slide. Early on, I brought some of this into one of my graduate courses and had students socially annotate a lot of the websites that ended up making their way into this module. And so it's not like, and Adam and I had talked about this, how the fear we had with this, the module was that it's not a like, hey, let's just go to this website and read it, and that's reading, but really paying attention to when you go onto this website, what do you notice? Right? The same kind of curiosity that we wanted to curate in the Google Earth activity, bringing that curiosity to digital texts. And so first, as you all did, we have students in engage with Google Earth. I will say that throughout the module, we use Yosemite National Park as the anchor park. So as a class, if you're talking about examples of what you are doing for the culminating task or the activities they'll be doing, everything kind of goes back to Yosemite. So that is the anchor national park that it's used throughout the module. And again, just having the expectation, not that students will be expert users of Google Earth, but that they are just seeing and exploring and playing in the sandbox. From there, as students get in groups and identify a national or state park that they want to learn more about, we send them to the Wikipedia page for that state park, national park, reserve. Now, yes, it's Wikipedia. And we've chosen this for some specific reasons. One, it's a nice interplay between text, hyperlinking, so web text features, images, and a question we got from early adopters of pilot teachers was, why are you sending them to Wikipedia? They shouldn't be reading Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not trustworthy. And we have students reading Wikipedia for what it is. It is not an extensive research source. It is just another sandbox for them to explore. But we're more focused here on exploring words and language and how people are talking about these state parks, and not as I don't know, authoritative research sources for their culminating task. They're just learning about what these places are. And that's about the level that Wikipedia is really good for. Adam, were you going to say something?
Yeah, of course. So it's also really an important time for teachers to talk to their students about quality online resources. And the reality is, when students search for things in Google's, they're going to come up first with Wikipedia and be like, oh, here's already all the information that's being requested. And so it's a nice time for you to talk to your students about like what is quality information, what's a good starting point, how to use Wikipedia in a way that could lead you, like Matt was saying, there's lots of really good hyperlinks that could lead to more specific information that's going to solve or answer additional questions or lead them to more explicit sources. So Wikipedia is not necessarily good or bad, it's how you use it and how you interact with it more specifically. So thanks, Deborah, for your question, because yes, it's important. If you leave it there, no, it's not a good resource. But if you think of it as a starting point, then yes, it's absolutely a good resource because otherwise you might not know where to go, especially if you're only at the beginning and you've never really investigated where are we Yosemite before. You might not know how to go to the national park website or something more specific.
Yeah, and as we were preparing for this today, there were so many opportunities where I was looking through this Yosemite National Park Wikipedia page, and I thought, oh, I want to actually go back to Google Earth to see where I know where Madera is because it's not far from me, but like, you know, Yosemite Valley, like I need to zoom in on that. And so there were play opportunities for me to go from I've seen this uh, broadly through Google Earth. I've learned a little bit more in Wikipedia. I want to go back to Google Earth to see different things. And so there's a lot of interplay between these websites within the module. Next, we get even more specific. So they're looking at the website, the official website for their national park or place. And so here, there's a lot more deliberate interplay between image, hyperlink, text, directionality where people are going through a website. And so actually letting students loose on something like this to where there are so many options to click on things, you can have interesting conversations about where did you click first? Why did you click there first? Where did you go? What did you want to, what was one thing you wanted to learn about this place? How did you get there to learn about that place within this website? And so they're doing a more specific deep dive into the place they've identified. And then finally, we have them going to iNaturalist, and Adam, that's all you.
Yeah, so we're just kind of modeling how to keep working down even from the national park level to a state park level to even like down to the plant flora fauna level using things like iNaturalist and how to be citizen scientists. Looking at like the Pacific dogwood or maybe either online or in person because someone asked before should you visit these places in person, like great if you can get out there, of course. We always recommend being in person, but maybe you see these little newts or salamanders and you want to investigate a little bit more or study them more. You can always have tangents and dive a little bit deeper into really specific things. And that's what we encourage. Hopefully, you get out of this from the curriculum.
Yeah, and the coolest thing that could happen in your classroom is a student sees one of these pictures and is like, I've seen that before, or I know what that is, or I never knew what that was called. But there it is, and that's the name. And so yeah, there are really cool moments like that that can pop up
Yeah.
while students are researching and learning.
And even within these pictures themselves, like really cool questions and curiosities can come up. Like Matt was showing me this even before we started this, and we'll just quick tangent. But we were looking at the sooty grouse, and I didn't even notice the sooty grouse in there because it's so well like blending in with the shadow. So I was like, oh, what a cool feature. The grouse knows as part of its like uh personal protection to blend in with shadows. And so like that's such a cool thing. Like I didn't see it. And maybe you didn't either. And besides the fact that it's got a really funny name. We love the city grouse.
Audrey, great question. Yes, activities do sort of walk students through this, but they will all start with students just exploring themselves first. So rather than, all right, this is how you use iNaturalist, they're thrown into iNaturalist so that they can play, figure it out, explore, and then more specifically taught like, well, what is this? Where did it come from? How do you use it? All of that.
Yeah. And there are more specific steps when it comes to like doing the research process, and they're built in. But there's a good balance between learning to notice, learning to play, and then also how do we follow like scientific processes.
All right, that's Adam insisted that this whale was here, and I love it. So yes.
So this has been a multi-year curriculum in the making, and we just want to talk a little bit about the early development of our curriculum, which has nothing to do with whales. It's just that Microsoft suggested that amazing picture, and we were like, why would we choose anything else? So we did pilot our curriculum with a local group of sixth grade teachers, and we got some really interesting feedback that was helpful as we made some revisions. So some of the things they noticed that were some of the technology tools were a challenge, and that students needed explicit guidance and use of, for example, the Google Earth to use it more effectively, or that some of the videos that we suggested were either too fast-paced or too vocabulary heavy. So they suggested, making frequent pauses in the videos, or doing captions, or playing the video again. That some of the texts were of challenging reading levels. So teachers substituted more accessible resources or created simplified handouts. Some of the pacing and the workload were too much for a single period of time. And so some of the teachers adapted and extended the pacing to multiple teaching sessions. Similarly, for some of the literacy, they required additional scaffolding and language supports. That our curriculum does have a certain level of academic vocabulary, and they advised us that there needed to be some pre-teaching and visuals and translanguaging, especially for their English language learners. And that even some of the sequencing and workflow needed to be adapted. And so the way we had developed the curriculum might not have made sense so much to them in a recipe-like fashion. So they rearranged some of the chapters that we built in. And our feedback, and as we made our revisions, were both based on feedback from the teachers as well as our research, in both our literacy and science pedagogy. So some of the things we want to consider and how we revised and revamped our curriculum is that we want to think about our curriculum not just using our literacy to learn science content, but actually the other way around. We see our curriculum as more of the technology and science content as a pedagogical mediation of how to learn language and literacy. We also see the curriculum as living, and we'd like teachers, whoever are using our curriculum, to see the modules as a living curriculum. So don't treat it so much as like a recipe in your cooking. You have to add specific ingredients as in a specific order, in the specific amounts at the right time. But really, like some of our sites that we add on, add additional sites, add your favorite sites and places. Add additional technology platforms, not just ones that exist, but ones you're comfortable with using. If you know something that we haven't included, don't be shy to bring it in. It's you're bringing yourself to the curriculum to impact the learning of your students. And also you need to make the lessons manageable for your students. You know who you're teaching. And just from looking at who's here, there's everyone from 6th grade teachers to 12th grade teachers. Of course, our curriculum isn't going to work for 12-year-olds and 18-year-olds. So we recommend, we never say to do it like a recipe. Like, please adapt. Make it developmentally appropriate for a young middle schooler or an aged high schooler. And that we really, oh no, go back. You're too quick. Oh no, that's the wrong way. Thank you. That we see and we position teachers as leaders and researchers. So recognize your expertise in the creator of the curriculum. That you've got to update things with your own pedagogical knowledge in light of local economies, environmental issues, social issues, and your students' interests in language and literacy demands. And so, make things relevant to your students. And so we wanted to also highlight, in case you're trying to justify this about like, why do I want to use this curriculum, or how does this matter to me, my school, and also like our state and national standards? Well, if you look at a crosswalk between our next generation science standards and our math and literacy common core standards, this is just a great example about all the ways that science, math, and ELA standards are overlapping and how we make this interdisciplinary. So you see at the core gray area that we want students to build a strong base of knowledge through content-rich texts. We want students to read, write, speak grounded with evidence. We want students to construct viable arguments and critique reasoning of others. We want to engage students in argument from evidence. Those are all built into the curriculum. So if you're doing that, you're actually teaching standards that are targeting math, science, literacy. So a common constraint teachers identify is that they don't have time to do math standards and science standards and literacy standards. Particularly, this is me working with elementary teachers who have to teach all content areas, where I teach them to be more interdisciplinary. Say, hey, it's like a 3-for-1 deal. You make one amazing interdisciplinary lesson, you're actually teaching all 3 content areas using the same time. So it's a nice overview. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight, or we wanted to highlight, is that we recognize that whether you have a multiple subject credential or a single subject credential or an education specialist credential, we are all required to be responsible for students' learning of literacy. This is a brand new teacher performance expectation that was required by the state as of this past school year, TPE number 7. And so whether you think of yourself as a science only or a social studies only or math only, you're also responsible for helping students develop their language and literacies. And so our curriculum really does attend to promoting literacy and science content at the same time. And so I highlighted the yellow parts, all the ways that I feel like we're meeting the teacher performance expectation number 7 really well. And I think that's just what's highlighted in our curriculum. And the others I feel like are addressed, but not as specifically.
All right. We wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions. And I love the questions we've gotten in the chat. Those have been really helpful. If there are questions that we haven't gotten to, I'm pointing, like you can see where I'm talking about. And yeah. If there are questions in the chat that we haven't gotten to, if you could re-ask those so that we can answer your questions, that would be great. Or if you want to like raise your hand and actually talk, I think you could do that too, Adam.
Well, I just noticed Deborah's asking about the slides and if we're sharing them. I don't mind. I don't know if Kia has a way to share slides with certain people or all the people. Or I guess you could put a link in there if you want, or I could.
When we upload the recording, I believe we can also post the slide or any other material like PDFs or anything like that.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. Deborah, I didn't forget. I hear you.
And just want to make sure that we got to Audrey's question. Do the activities in this module walk students through how to gather information from these digital resources and synthesize it?
Yeah, so So students are introduced to the culminating task pretty early in the module. And so they know that they are learning about these different places and using these different websites partly for that purpose, in addition to just exploring and discovering new cool things. And so, yes, the activities within the module more purposefully walk students through how to engage with those texts. What they don't, well, I'll leave it at that because I'm seeing more questions.
Yeah. And Gina, I don't think to my knowledge that science teachers specifically were targeted in our pilot program. I think this was geared more towards literacy and English teachers at our 6th grade level. And honestly, I wouldn't give this to science teachers because I'd want more science specific stuff going on where they're doing more activities on a daily basis. I like the idea that more literacy and English teachers are using this because it integrates a little more science rather than giving this to science teachers that are integrating only actually a tiny bit of science. But if you're a science teacher, feel free to take some of the ideas, and adapt it specifically. But I wouldn't take it wholesale. This is not a science curriculum. It's integrating science more with literacy.
Okay, good way to put it.
And then we have a question from Chris. What outcomes or success stories do you have to share regarding these activities?
Adam, you looked at the feedback most recently.
Yeah.
Does anything come to mind?
Well, just that teachers recognize the value for, like Matt says over and over, playing. The idea that students get to interact with technology as a way to experience something that it got a lot of, like, students were curious about things. They had never looked at California in certain ways. They'd never gotten to explore local resources or places and spaces, and that's certainly valuable. That it got a lot of students interested and attracted to learning more and reading and writing about what's in their local area. So that's really the success. And that they also liked how it supported a lot of their basic literacy skills that they were trying to do, which is also a success. That their traditional ways that they had done it in the past, weren't necessarily working. Like our initial feature, like we talked about how students were disinterested or disengaged. This brought back the engagement, the excitement, and students really being able to connect to the curriculum.
Stacy, you can access the module materials on the ERWC learning community. They're listed under, I think, well, I don't know, Kia or Jennifer, you can probably correct me here, but they're listed under where all the modules are located. And I think they're called 6th grade modules.
Yes, under
Yeah.
curriculum, under the curriculum tab. I believe in order to access, wait, sorry. I believe in order to access those, though, you have to be certified in ERWC.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then I think that concludes the questions.
Yep. All right. So if you want to talk to either of us more about this module, if you've decided to use it or something, or I don't know, you just also love cool whale hot air balloons, we can talk to you about that as well. But thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your time. And go be curious about something.